The email from Sterling National Bank sat unopened in my inbox for 3 hours. Not because I was busy. Running a successful clothing brand means I'm always busy. But because seeing my parents' company name in the subject line made my hands shake. My name is Kendra, and 5 years ago, my father told me I would amount to nothing when I dropped out of business school. Now I'm the silent investor they're unknowingly begging for help. You need to open it eventually, Emmett said, sliding a fresh cup of coffee across my desk. The late afternoon sun caught his concerned expression as he settled into the chair opposite me. Victoria already confirmed it's about their loan application. I took a sip of coffee, buying time. Did you know they've never once visited our flagship store? It's been 3 years since we opened, and they live 20 minutes away. Kendra, I know. I clicked the email open, scanning the contents. They're requesting a meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Apparently, it's urgent. The irony wasn't lost on me. 5 years ago, I was the one desperately trying to get my parents to listen. I'd developed a sustainable clothing line using recycled materials, but all they saw was their daughter throwing away a real education. You'll end up on the street, Dad had shouted during our last real conversation. No one wants to buy clothes made from trash. My phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. Meeting confirmed for tomorrow. Want me to sit in? You're cool, Emmett said, reading over my shoulder. But having your business advisor there might help keep things professional. I laughed darkly. Nothing's ever just professional with my parents. Standing up, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. Below, customers streamed in and out of my store, carrying bags with our distinctive recycled logo. Remember when Dad called my first collection garbage fashion? And now you're featured in Vogue. Emmett came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. You proved them wrong. Did I? Because it feels like they still see me as that rebellious kid who couldn't hack it in college. I turned to face him. What if this meeting is just another chance for them to judge me? Then you show them your quarterly reports. He grinned. Nothing says I made it quite like a 300% year-over-year growth chart. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sadie. Girl, just saw the loan application cross my desk. Your parents are in deep trouble. Call me. Working at Sterling National had its perks. Sadie always kept me in the loop. I texted back quickly. Tomorrow 2 p.m. Drinks after. You're going to help them, aren't you? Emmett asked quietly. I walked back to my desk, running my fingers along the sustainable bamboo surface. I haven't decided yet. Yes, you have. He smiled knowingly. You wouldn't have let the meeting be scheduled if you weren't at least considering it. Maybe I just want to see their faces when they realize their failure daughter holds their fate in her hands. The words came out bitter, surprising even me. That's not you, Kendra. Emmett's voice was gentle but firm. You built this company because you believed in something bigger than revenge. He was right, of course. Every decision I'd made, from sourcing recycled materials to ensuring fair wages for our workers, was about proving sustainable fashion could be both profitable and ethical. Revenge had never been part of the business plan. My computer pinged with another email, the final meeting confirmation. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I would face my parents across a conference table for the first time in 5 years. I'll tell Victoria to be there, I decided, typing quickly. And Emmett, would you... Already cleared my schedule. He squeezed my shoulder. I'll be right outside if you need me. As the sun set over the city, I stayed at my desk, staring at old family photos on my phone. Mom and Dad at my high school graduation, beaming with pride. Dad teaching me to drive, his patience endless then. Mom helping me with my first sewing project before she knew it would lead to me leaving college. Where had it all gone wrong? The security guard's radio crackled outside my office, the evening shift changing over. I should head home too, but something kept me rooted to my chair. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. I opened my laptop and pulled up my parents' loan application. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Their furniture business was drowning in debt. One signature from me could save them. One signature could also make them face the consequences of their choices, just like they'd forced me to face mine. The question was, what kind of karma did I want to serve? Sleep didn't come easily that night. By morning, I was already on my third espresso when Victoria strode into my office, impeccably dressed as always. "You look terrible," she announced, dropping into a chair. "Tell me you at least reviewed the loan documents." "Every page." I pushed a folder across my desk. Their furniture business lost 60% of its revenue in the last 2 years. They're hemorrhaging money. Victoria flipped through the papers, her expression growing grimmer. They've been taking personal loans to cover payroll. Classic desperate move. She looked up sharply. "You know this isn't just about money for them. Their pride is on the line." "When isn't it?" I muttered, remembering the day I'd told them about dropping out. "You're throwing away everything we've worked for," Dad had roared, his face purple with rage. "All those extra tutoring sessions, the college prep courses. I have a real business plan," I'd insisted, holding up my sketches. "Sustainable fashion is the future. If you just look, enough." He'd slammed his hand on the table. "Either you stay in school or you're on your own. No support, no safety net." Mom had just sat there, silent tears running down her face. A knock at my office door snapped me back to the present. Emmett entered, carrying a garment bag. "Thought you might want this for the meeting," he said, unzipping it to reveal my first successful design. A blazer made entirely from recycled plastic bottles. The one that had landed us our first major investor. "Perfect choice," Victoria approved. "Nothing says 'I told you so' quite like wearing your own success." "This isn't about revenge," I protested weakly. "No?" Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Then why are your hands shaking?" Before I could respond, Sadie burst in, waving her phone. "You will not believe what I just heard. Your dad tried calling in favors at 3 other banks this morning. They all turned him down." "How bad is it really?" Emmett asked. Sadie grimaced. "They've got maybe 2 months before they have to shut down. The market for overpriced traditional furniture is dead. Nobody wants to pay premium prices for stuff that's destroying forests." The irony wasn't lost on me. While they'd been clinging to outdated business models, I'd built my brand on sustainability and innovation. "1 hour until the meeting," Victoria reminded me. "What's your game plan?" My voice faltered. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Emmett's voice was firm. "You've known since you got that email yesterday. The question isn't whether you'll help them, it's how you'll do it." "They don't deserve her help," Sadie interjected. "Remember when they didn't show up to your first fashion show? Or when your dad told all their country club friends you were having a phase?" "Sadie," Emmett warned. "No, she's right." I stood up, slipping on the recycled blazer. It fit perfectly, just like always. "They don't deserve my help, but maybe that's not the point." Victoria nodded slowly. "Sometimes the most powerful move isn't revenge, it's showing grace when you have every right not to." "But not without conditions," Sadie added quickly. "You're a businesswoman now, not their daughter begging for approval." I checked my reflection in the window. The blazer's subtle sheen caught the light, a testament to how far we'd come in sustainable textile development. "What time did you say they arrived, Sadie?" "They've been sitting in the bank's lobby for 20 minutes already." She smirked. "Apparently, punctuality matters when you're desperate." My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "We're here early. Your father's nervous, though he won't admit it. Please be kind." 5 years of silence, and that's what she leads with? "It's time," Victoria announced, gathering her papers. "Ready?" I took one last look around my office. At the awards on the walls, the magazine covers featuring our designs, the framed photo of our first store opening. Everything I'd built without them. "Wait," Emmett called as I reached the door. He straightened my blazer collar and kissed me softly. "Remember who you are, not who they thought you'd be." The walk to the elevator felt like miles. Victoria matched my pace, her heels clicking against the marble floor. As we descended to the bank's conference level, she turned to me. "Whatever happens in there, you've already won. Don't let them make you forget that." The elevator doors opened, and I caught a glimpse of my parents through the lobby's glass walls. Dad was pacing, his once confident stride now uncertain. Mom sat rigidly, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. They hadn't seen me yet. For one more moment, I was still their failure of a daughter. "Ready?" Victoria asked again. I squared my shoulders, feeling the familiar comfort of my recycled blazer. Let's show them what garbage fashion can do. The conference room temperature felt arctic, but my parents' faces went hot when Victoria introduced me as our key decision maker. Dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Mom's perfectly manicured fingers trembled as she gripped her water glass. "Kendra," Dad finally managed, "what is this?" "This is a business meeting," Victoria answered smoothly, spreading documents across the mahogany table. "Kendra's company holds significant investment power with Sterling National." Mom found her voice first. "Your clothing business did this." "Sustainable fashion," I corrected, keeping my tone neutral. "We've expanded to 30 stores nationwide in the past 3 years." "Impossible," Dad muttered. "That garbage bag collection of yours generated $90 million in revenue last quarter." Victoria cut in, sliding a financial report toward them. "Perhaps we should focus on why you're here today." Dad's face flushed darker. I recognized that look, the same one he'd worn when I'd packed my bags 5 years ago. "We don't need charity," he snapped, starting to stand. "Albert," Mom hissed, pulling him back down. "Please." "Your loan application suggests otherwise," I said, opening my laptop. "You've lost most of your major contracts. Your overhead is unsustainable. And your attempts to secure funding elsewhere have been unsuccessful. You've been spying on us." Dad's voice rose. "Banking is a small world." I met his gaze. "Just like the furniture business used to be, before you refused to adapt." Mom flinched. "Kendra, honey, we didn't know that I'd succeed." The words came out sharper than intended. "Or that I'd be in position to save your company." "That's not fair," Dad protested. "Fair?" I laughed. "Was it fair when you told the Hendersons I was having a mental breakdown? Or when you returned the Christmas gifts I sent unopened?" Victoria cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should review the numbers." "The numbers are clear," I continued, turning my laptop around. "Your business model is obsolete. Customers want sustainable options, not imported hardwoods destroying rainforests." "We have traditions," Dad insisted. "Standards." "Standards?" My voice cracked. "Like telling your daughter she's throwing her life away, that she'll end up homeless?" "I was trying to protect you." "You were protecting your ego," I shot back, "just like you're doing now, refusing to admit your business needs to change." The room fell silent. Outside, city life continued, cars honking, people rushing past. Inside, years of unspoken words hung heavy in the air. "What are our options?" Mom asked quietly. I pulled out another folder. "We can offer a loan with conditions. First, you'll need to shift to sustainable materials. My company has connections with eco-friendly suppliers." Dad's jaw clenched. "You want us to completely change our brand?" "I want you to survive." I pushed the folder toward them. "Second condition, you'll hire an environmental consultant to oversee the transition. Third, quarterly audits to ensure compliance." "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Dad's words dripped with bitterness. "Watching us beg." "Albert," Mom's voice sharpened, "stop it." "No, let him continue," I said, standing slowly. "Tell me again how I'm throwing my life away. How no one would ever take me seriously. How I'd come crawling back within a month." Victoria touched my arm gently. "Kendra, you know what the worst part was?" I pressed on. "Not the criticism or the silence or even the lies you told people. It was that you never once came to see what I'd built, never once tried to understand." Mom's eyes welled with tears. "We were wrong. Is that what you want to hear?" "I want you to understand that I'm not that scared girl anymore," I replied. "I'm offering you a chance to save your company, but it's business, not personal. You have 24 hours to review the terms." Dad stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Come on, Milena, we're done here. Actually, Victoria interjected, Mrs. Lowe needs to stay to sign some preliminary paperwork, standard procedure. Mum hesitated, looking between Dad and me. Finally, she nodded. I'll meet you at the car, Albert. Dad stormed out, leaving a wake of tension behind him. As Victoria led Mom to another room for signatures, I sank back into my chair, exhausted. My phone buzzed. A text from Emmett. How's it going? Before I could respond, another message popped up. An anonymous email alert. Your success is built on lies. The truth about your sustainable materials is about to come out. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Only a handful of people knew the details of our supply chain, and my father had just left the building. He wouldn't dare, Emmett said, pacing my office later that evening. Threatening your business would only hurt their chances of getting the loan. I forwarded him the anonymous email. You didn't see his face when he left. He looked desperate, Victoria suggested from the couch, where she was reviewing security protocols. Men like your father are dangerous when cornered. My phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. Your recycling program is a fraud. Wonder what the press would think. That specific information, Sadie noted, peering at my screen. Only someone who's investigated your supply chain would know to question the recycling program. Or someone who's been fed that information, Victoria added meaningfully. I slumped in my chair. Dad always had connections in manufacturing. He could have asked around, found weak points. But why now? Emmett stopped pacing. Why not years ago when you first started? Because now I have power over him. The realization hit hard. He'd rather destroy my business than let me save his. Victoria stood up, straightening her blazer. Let me make some calls. I know people who can trace these emails. Already on it, Sadie said, typing furiously on her laptop. The IP address is interesting. It's coming from your parents' country club. My stomach dropped. Dad's probably there right now, drowning his pride in scotch. Kendra, Emmett said softly, maybe we should consider... Another email popped up. Final warning, withdraw from the loan decision by morning, or everyone learns the truth. That's it. I grabbed my keys. I'm going to the club. Not alone, you're not. Emmett snatched the keys from my hand. I'm driving. The country club looked exactly as I remembered. All manicured lawns and old money pretense. The valet recognized me, his eyes widening. Ms. Kendra, it's been years. Is my father here, Tony? He nodded toward the bar. Since about 3 o'clock. Been hitting the scotch pretty hard. Inside, the familiar smell of leather and cigars brought back memories of forced family dinners and disapproving glances. Dad sat alone at the bar, tumbler in hand. Really, Dad? Threats? He turned slowly, eyes slightly unfocused. Shouldn't you be counting your recycled bottles? Stop the emails. I kept my voice low, aware of watching eyes. You're only making things worse. Emails? He laughed harshly. I haven't sent any emails. Too busy watching my life's work crumble while my daughter plays savior. Something in his voice made me pause. Wait, if you're not sending them... Albert? A woman's voice called from across the room. I've been trying to reach you about those documents you wanted. I turned to see Margaret, Dad's former secretary, clutching a manila envelope. Her face went pale when she saw me. What documents, Margaret? I stepped toward her. She backed away. Just some old files Albert asked for, about your company's early days. Dad stood up unsteadily. Margaret, don't... But she was already rushing toward the exit, dropping the envelope. Papers spilled across the floor. Internal documents from my company's first year. Supplier contracts. Recycling certificates. How did you get these? I demanded, snatching them up. Margaret looked at Dad pleadingly. He said he needed them for the loan application. Emmett, who had been watching from the doorway, stepped forward. Those are confidential business documents. Accessing them illegally could mean serious charges. Dad slumped back onto his bar stool. I just wanted to understand. How you did it. How you succeeded where I'm failing. The anger drained from me, replaced by something sadder. You could have just asked me. Asked you? He laughed bitterly. My daughter, who proved me wrong about everything, who's now in position to destroy everything I built. I don't want to destroy anything, I said quietly. But these threats have to stop, Margaret. She nodded quickly. I'm sorry, Albert was always good to me, and when he asked, Go home, I told her. We'll discuss this with HR tomorrow. After she scurried away, I turned back to Dad. He looked smaller somehow, hunched over his scotch. The loan offer stands, I said. But one more threat, one more attempt to undermine my company, and I'll press charges instead. You would do that? He looked up, eyes red. To your own father. You taught me well, I replied, turning to leave. Business is business, right? Outside, Emmett waited by the car. You okay? I looked back at the club, at the life I'd left behind. No, but I will be. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. We need to talk, alone. There's something you should know about your father. Mom suggested meeting at her favorite cafe, a quiet place where she used to take me for hot chocolate after piano lessons. Walking in, I spotted her immediately, looking smaller than I remembered in her designer suit. You're wearing one of your designs, she said as I sat down. It's beautiful. Thanks. I smoothed the recycled fabric dress. What did you want to tell me about Dad? She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. 3 years ago, your father tried to stop your first major contract. The words hit like a slap. What? He contacted the department store chain that was going to carry your line. Told them your materials weren't really sustainable, that it was all marketing lies. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I found out and intercepted the evidence before they could investigate. My coffee arrived, but I couldn't touch it. You knew? All this time? I destroyed the letters, called the store executives personally. Her voice shook. Told them your father was unwell, that he was acting out of misplaced pride. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. She finally looked up. Not just of him, of myself. For staying silent when you needed support, for letting him drive you away. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous email. Mom noticed my expression. Those threats you're getting now, they're not from your father. She pulled out her own phone, showing me emails from Margaret. She's been trying to prove her loyalty to him for years, even after we let her go. You fired Margaret. 6 months after you left. We caught her embezzling. Mom's lips tightened. Your father kept it quiet, helped her find another job. She's been indebted to him ever since. So, when he asked for information about my company, she jumped at the chance to help, even though he never actually asked her to send threats. Mom sighed. Your father may be proud and stubborn, but he wouldn't risk jail time. My phone rang, Victoria's name flashing on screen. Sorry, I need to take this. Kendra, Victoria's voice was urgent. Margaret just tried to access our supplier database using your father's old login credentials. We've blocked her, but... I know, I cut in. Mom's filling me in. Can you... Already on it. Legal's preparing a cease and desist. But Kendra, she downloaded files before we caught her. If those get out... I ended the call, turning back to Mom. Why are you telling me this now? Because your father's pride is destroying everything. Our business, our family, maybe now even your company. She reached across the table, touching my hand. And because I'm tired of secrets. Does Dad know you're here? No, he's meeting with our lawyers, trying to find alternatives to your loan. She squeezed my hand. He won't find any. My phone buzzed again, Sadie this time. Margaret's threatening to send files to fashion blogs. Want me to shut her down? I have to go, I told Mom, standing. There's something I need to handle. Kendra, wait. Mom stood too. There's more you should know. About why your father really opposed your business. More secrets. Your grandfather, his father, died broke after his sustainable furniture company failed. Dad swore he'd never let that happen to his family. Her eyes were pleading. He wasn't trying to hurt you. He was trying to protect you from his worst fear. I sat back down slowly. Why didn't he ever tell me this? Pride, fear, the same reasons he won't admit he needs help now. She pulled out an old photo from her purse. Dad and his father in front of a furniture shop. Your grandfather was ahead of his time with sustainable materials. The market wasn't ready. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from Victoria, Sadie, Emmett. But for a moment, I just stared at the photo, at my father's young, hopeful face. The market's ready now, I said quietly. Yes, it is. Mum smiled sadly. And you proved it. Everything he was afraid of, everything he thought would fail, you made it work. Another message flashed. Margaret threatening press conference. Need decision now. I stood again, this time with purpose. I have to deal with Margaret. But Mom, tell Dad. Tell him I know about Grandpa, and that we should talk, really talk. He won't make it easy. He never has. I managed a small smile. But maybe that's not the point anymore. Leaving the cafe, I called Victoria. Get everyone in the conference room. It's time to end this, but not just with legal threats. What are you planning? I looked back through the window at Mom, still sitting with that old photo. Something either very smart or very stupid. But first, we need to talk to Margaret. Because sometimes the biggest threats come from the smallest wounds, and the only way forward is through the truth, no matter how much it hurts. Margaret sat in our conference room like a cornered animal, her eyes darting between me, Victoria, and our legal team. The stack of printed emails in front of her told the whole story. I was just trying to help Albert, she said, voice trembling, after everything he did for me. By threatening his daughter's company, Victoria's tone could have frozen hell. That's an interesting way to show gratitude. I held up my hand, silencing Victoria. Tell me about the embezzlement, Margaret. Her face went white. How did you... My mother told me. How Dad helped cover it up, got you another job. I leaned forward. But she didn't tell me why you did it. Tears welled in Margaret's eyes. My husband was sick. The medical bills. I just needed a little more time to pay it back. And Dad understood that. She nodded. He said everyone deserves a second chance. That mistakes shouldn't define us. Interesting. I opened my laptop, turning it toward her. Because I have your resignation letter here. The one where you claim you left to pursue other opportunities. Not a word about the stolen money. Please, she whispered. I can't lose another job. You should have thought about that before downloading confidential files, Victoria interjected. Actually, I said, I have a different proposition. Everyone in the room looked at me in surprise. You're good at digging up information, Margaret, at finding weaknesses in systems. I closed my laptop. How would you like to do that legally, as our new compliance officer? What? Victoria and Margaret spoke in unison. We need someone to oversee the transition if my parents accept the loan. Someone who knows both businesses, who understands the importance of doing things right. But she tried to blackmail you, Victoria protested, and now she's going to help us instead. I turned back to Margaret. You'll work under Victoria's supervision. Any hint of disloyalty, any more threats, and we press charges for corporate espionage. Deal? Margaret's hands shook as she reached for a tissue. Why would you trust me? I don't, but I trust that you want redemption. I stood up. Just like my father did when he helped you. The legal team presented her with paperwork, NDAs, employment contracts, and a confession about the threats that would be sealed unless needed. As she signed, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Your mother told me about our conversation. Can we meet? Go, Victoria said softly. I'll handle this. I found Dad in my office, staring at the wall of magazine covers featuring our sustainable designs. He looked older in the fluorescent light, more vulnerable. Grandpa would have loved this, he said without turning around. He always said fashion and furniture were cousins, both about making people feel at home in their own skin. Why didn't you ever tell me about him? He touched one of the frames gently. Because watching his dream die broke something in me. I thought if I pushed you toward traditional business, you'd be safe. Safe from what? From this feeling. He finally faced me. From watching everything you built slip away because you were too stubborn to change. Dad, no, let me finish. He took a deep breath. Your grandfather believed in sustainable furniture before anyone cared. The market killed him. When you started talking about sustainable fashion, all I could see was history repeating itself. But it didn't. No. He smiled sadly. You did what he couldn't, what I never dared to try. You changed the market instead of letting it change you. I moved closer, seeing the unshed tears in his eyes. The loan offer includes consulting services. We could help you do the same. I don't deserve your help. Maybe not. I touched his arm. But Grandpa deserves his dream to live on, doesn't he? He broke then, pulling me into a hug that felt 30 years overdue. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair, for everything. My phone buzzed. A message from Victoria. Margaret signed everything. What next? I pulled back from Dad's embrace, wiping my eyes. Ready to revolutionize the furniture industry. I don't know how. Good thing you have a daughter who specializes in sustainable materials. I smiled. And a former secretary who's about to become our compliance officer. His eyebrows shot up. Margaret? After what she did. Someone once told her everyone deserves a second chance. I handed him a tissue. Maybe it's time we all believed that. Dad looked around my office, at the evidence of everything I'd built without him, everything we could build together. Where do we start? First, I picked up the loan paperwork. We sign these, then we make Grandpa proud. Sometimes healing comes in unexpected ways, through the very wounds we're trying to hide. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's restoration. The bank's boardroom felt different this time. Mom and Dad sat across from me, but the tension had shifted. Victoria laid out the final loan documents, while Margaret stood nervously by the presentation screen. The transition plan is aggressive, Victoria explained, highlighting key points. Complete overhaul of material sourcing within 6 months. New marketing strategy launching in 3. That's impossible, Dad started, but Margaret stepped forward. Actually, I've already identified 3 sustainable suppliers. She clicked through her presentation. They can match your quality standards using reclaimed wood and eco-friendly processing. Dad's eyebrows rose. You did this research. I know your business, Albert. Margaret straightened her shoulders. And now I know Kendra's. This can work. Mom reached for Dad's hand as the projected numbers appeared on screen. Look at these projections, Albert. It's better than we hoped. There's more, I said, standing. We want to launch a joint collection. Sustainable furniture paired with our textiles. A complete home ecosystem. Like your grandfather's original vision, Mom whispered. Dad's hands trembled slightly as he picked up the pen. The interest rates are steep. Business is business, I replied, echoing his words from years ago. But the consulting services, those are free. Family discount. He looked up sharply, meeting my eyes. The ghost of our last fight hung between us, but something else too. Understanding, maybe even respect. Margaret, he said suddenly, could you pull up the photos from the archive? She clicked to a new slide. There it was, Grandpa's original storefront. Sustainable living painted proudly on the window, decades before its time. I drove by that building last week, Dad said quietly. It's a vape shop now, but I remember helping him sand tables, watching him explain to skeptical customers why sustainable materials mattered. Now those same customers are demanding it, Victoria noted. The market's shifted. Because people like Kendra shifted it, Mom added, squeezing Dad's hand. I pulled out one more document. There's something else. We're renaming the joint collection. Dad frowned at the paper. William's legacy? After Grandpa, I explained. His vision continued through 3 generations. The room went quiet. Dad stared at the document, his jaw working. Finally, he looked up at Margaret. You really think we can do this? She nodded firmly. With Kendra's resources and your craftsmanship, we can do more than that. We can lead the industry. He picked up the pen again, but paused. The day you left for college, your grandfather told me something. He said, Albert, sometimes the best way to honor tradition is to let it evolve. Smart man, Victoria murmured. I was too scared to listen then. Dad's pen touched the paper. I'm listening now. The signatures took less than a minute. Just like that, decades of resistance transformed into partnership. One more thing, I said as everyone started gathering their things. We're hosting a launch event next month. I'd like you both there, not just as business partners. Mum's eyes welled up. As family. As family. Dad stood straightening his jacket. Will you... He cleared his throat. Will you show me around your factory sometime? I'd like to understand how you do it. How about tomorrow? I smiled. I'll even let you test our new recycled fabric samples. The garbage fashion? His eyes twinkled. I hear it's quite profitable. Dad, too soon? For the first time in years, we laughed together. Real laughter, not the polite kind we used to share at country club dinners. Victoria caught my eye, nodding toward the door. One by one, everyone filed out, leaving me alone with my parents. We were wrong, Mom said softly. About everything. Not everything. I touched the fabric of my dress. You taught me to stand up for what I believe in, to work hard, to be resilient. We taught you those things by fighting you, Dad countered. Maybe. I shrugged. But I learned them anyway. My phone buzzed. Emmett. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Bring Emmett too, Mom said, reading over my shoulder. We have 5 years of getting to know him to catch up on. Dad gathered the loan documents, holding them like something precious. Think your grandfather would be proud. I looked at our signatures, side by side on the paper, at Margaret's presentation still glowing on the screen, at Mom's hopeful smile and Dad's tentative one. Yeah, I said, I think he'd be proud of all of us. Sometimes the hardest battles end not with surrender, but with synthesis. And sometimes the best revenge is proving that love was stronger than pride all along. The launch event for Williams Legacy transformed our flagship store into something magical. Sustainable furniture pieces paired perfectly with our textile collections, creating intimate living spaces throughout the showroom. Press and influencers mingled with customers, all admiring the seamless blend of old-world craftsmanship and modern sustainability. Your grandfather would be speechless, Mom said, adjusting a throw pillow made from recycled materials. Though he'd probably try to explain the joinery techniques to everyone. Like father, like son, I laughed, watching Dad enthusiastically demonstrate the reclaimed wood finishing process to a group of reporters. Victoria appeared at my elbow. The press response is incredible. 3 major magazines want exclusive features. Tell them they'll have to fight Margaret for scheduling, I joked. She's running both companies' PR departments like a military operation. Speaking of Margaret, Victoria nodded toward the entrance, where Margaret was greeting guests with newfound confidence. She's transformed almost as much as your father has. Second chances look good on people. Emmett joined us, champagne glasses in hand. Your father just sold 4 dining sets in 10 minutes, said something about garbage furniture paying for his retirement. He's joking about it now. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Progress. Baby steps, I agreed, accepting a glass. Though he did ask about expanding the sustainable line to outdoor furniture yesterday. The store's lighting dimmed slightly. Time for the official presentation. Dad made his way to the small platform we'd set up, looking nervous but determined. When my father opened his first sustainable furniture store, he began, voice steady. People called him crazy. When my daughter started her sustainable fashion line, I called her crazy. He paused, finding my eyes in the crowd. Turns out crazy runs in the family, along with being right. Laughter rippled through the audience. Williams' legacy isn't just about furniture or fashion, he continued. It's about admitting when you're wrong. about letting go of fear, about believing that doing good business and doing good for the world aren't mutually exclusive. Mom squeezed my hand as Dad gestured toward our displays. Every piece here tells 3 stories: my father's vision, my daughter's innovation, and our family's journey back to each other. His voice roughened. We lost years to pride and fear. But thanks to my daughter's success, and yes, her forgiveness, we found something better than tradition. We found evolution. Margaret appeared with a covered frame. Dad unveiled it, Grandpa's original store sign, restored and mounted. "This will hang in every store that carries the Williams legacy line," Dad announced. "A reminder that being ahead of your time isn't a curse. Sometimes you just have to wait for the world to catch up." The applause was thunderous. As Dad stepped down, Emmett whispered in my ear, "Ready for your surprise?" "What surprise?" He guided me to the store's front window. There, being installed above our usual signage, was a new addition. A Williams legacy partner. "Your father's idea," Emmett explained. "He insisted." Dad appeared beside us. "Too much?" "It's perfect," I managed, fighting tears. "No crying," he warned, looking suspiciously misty himself. "We have customers to impress." "Speaking of which," Margaret called from across the room, "that reporter from Vogue is ready for the joint interview." Dad straightened his tie. "Ready to tell our story?" "Which version?" I asked. "The one where you tried to stop me, or the one where you inspired me?" "How about the true one?" He smiled. "Where we both had to learn that love is stronger than fear." Victoria cleared her throat. "If you two are done with the family therapy, we have a business to run." "Always so practical," Mom teased, joining us. "Let them have their moment." Looking around the store, at the perfect blend of Dad's craftsmanship and my sustainable materials, at Margaret's proud smile, at Mom's glowing face, at Emmett's supportive presence, I felt something settle into place. "You know what Grandpa used to say?" Dad asked softly. "The strongest furniture is built from the wood that bent without breaking." "Smart man," I replied. "Smarter than me, but I'm learning." The reporter approached, notebook ready. "Shall we begin?" Dad gestured for me to lead the way. As we walked toward the interview setup, he whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for finally catching up. Sometimes karma isn't about revenge or justice. Sometimes it's about the long road back to understanding. About family legacies that bend but don't break. About finding that the very things that drove us apart can bring us back together. Stronger, wiser, and ready to build something new. Just like Grandpa would have wanted."